How's it going, guys? Today I wanted to go over a bunch of stuff in regards to the Blade Torrent. As you can see, mine is already highly modded. Some basic ones right off the start. I ditched the guards for the props. Those really are only to protect your walls and stuff if you're flying inside. I have different propellers on here. These are Gemfan 2035 bullnose props. They are 4-blade props. They're a smidge smaller in length than the stock props, but they fly a lot smoother. I have some antenna tubing here. I kept getting my receiver wires all jacked up, so for me that was the best solution. Today I'm going to be doing some other mods. I'm going to be upgrading my power to a XT30 plug. I'm going to also be switching out these motors. That is something that's also not stock. These are iPower 1104 7500 kV motors. I like them better. They get a little bit less hot than the stock motors. So let's take this thing over to the desk and get to work. Alright, we got the Torrent on the bench here. I am gonna take these props off. They're not really even secured on there anyway. And then we're gonna go ahead and open up the canopy. To open up the canopy, there is 2 screws inside, one here and one up in here. All these various bolts around the motors, taking off the canopy, and holding on the flight stack. All of those require this 1.5 millimeter hex tip. When you take the canopy off, you don't want to just yank it off. There's 2 wires up in here that are connected. There might even be one more. No, I think it's just these 2. So I disconnect them carefully while also pulling the antennas out. So I'm trying to take this. There we go. Canopy's off. If you wanted to add this antenna tubing like I've done here, all you need to do is drill out the holes that are already there, some to a slightly bigger size, and then cut your antenna tubing to the right length. And then if you want to use the heat shrink method, I just kind of layered it on there in spots and then hit it with a lighter real quick so that I could wedge them into the holes there. One thing you'll notice is that inside your Torrent, you probably will have a black Spectrum receiver in here, and that I have replaced with the XM Plus FR Sky receiver, and I did that so I could fly with my Tyrannus. So that one actually wires directly up here. The black, orange, and gray wire that is right here above the receiver is the wire that was actually on there for the Spectrum receiver. I just used that one and I snipped off the one end, and it wires up just the same to the XM Plus receiver here. I'll link a video in the description for a guide to installing this receiver, the one that I used, and that will provide some better wiring for that. But really, you can just follow the instructions that come with the XM Plus receiver and wire it up just like the Spectrum receiver was, and you'll be ready to rock. They are both on the same exact frequency, I think. I have rubber grommets down here in the corners. Those rubber grommets are from the Blade and Ductrix drone. They fit perfectly in there. But I was doing that to soft mount the flight controller. And I think most people are doing this because of drift issues, and the only time you would be having those kind of drift issues usually because of the flight controller would be if you're flying in a auto leveling mode. I actually only fly in acro or rate mode, so I've never experienced any of the drifting, but these soft mounts definitely will help if that is going on. Other people are soft mounting their motors to also help with the drifting. I think that was like the last little phasing in getting rid of the last smidge of drift that people were experiencing. But I just have my motors mounted directly to the frame because I wasn't having, again, any drift issues because I'm not flying in a auto leveling mode. One other thing to remember is when you're putting your motors on or swapping the new motors or mounting them differently than they were stock, you want to make sure that when you're putting your screws back in the bottom of the frame here that hold the motor to the frame, that the ends of the screws don't go so far up into the motor that they make contact with the copper windings inside. Otherwise, you'll short out your motors. Now we're going to start removing these 4 screws. They are what hold the stack all together. When you're removing the bottom 4 bolts for the stack, you want to make sure that you don't lose these spacers. On my setup, there's only one of the plastic kind and one rubber kind from the Inductrix, and again, I did that to semi-soft mount the flight controller. But this plastic, get in here, this plastic spacer right here is going to want to fall out as you take these screws out. So that's why I kind of use this little stand thing here. You can see there's some screws and stuff in there. I kind of like work on top of it and I catch my screws and little pieces of stuff that might fall off while I'm taking this thing apart. That. Get those spacers. They're probably gonna fall. Yeah. Cool. Alright. So now the stack is apart. Remove this big wire right there. And now we got the actual flight controller and the receiver all detached and the camera. So now I'm left with just the ESC all disconnected and my motors. I also have the power wire still as well. Also the last time that I wired these up, I had to remove a bunch of it was, well, you can see here I have some hot glue over the solder points just to keep them extra protected. But when I first tore this open, Blade or Horizon Hobby, they like to use this like black liquid electrical tape, and I first worked fairly hard to get rid of that. It doesn't like to come off. I use tweezers like these and a couple other things just to really get rid of all that. But when I resoldered the wire or the motors on here, I decided to kind of follow their route with protecting those connection points. So now I'm gonna remove these bits of hot glue that I have around here, and that way we can start desoldering these wires. Alright, now turning on my soldering iron, I'm going to start trying to remove the solder here and get these wires off. So we are all disassembled motor-wise. Now all we gotta do is unmount the motors themselves. Alright, and that's it. I've been using these little teeny tweezers and these still to remove whatever glue I still have left here. Some of it was kind of still hanging out on top of the solder points. I'm gonna go through and clean these up. That side was easy. This one looks like it could use a bit more solder. So we'll do that. Alright, so now we're ready to actually wire up the motors here. You don't want to twist any of the wires, so literally as they come off the motor is how you want to solder them. And for like this terminal here, you want to solder all three in this order to that. And then this other motor will be these three without overlapping any wires. And then you move your way around, but the stock wires were all wired with the wires to the inside of the flight controller or of the ESC here. And so that's all I did when I wired these motors, was keep those in the exact same order. Got some extra screws, and I like to visually inspect these first too, just to make sure there's nothing funky going on. They look pretty good. Nice brand new eye powers. I'm not actually going to trim the wire length at all. They're actually already a decent length. They're a smidge long, but I just zip tie the slack down to the frame. Alright, I am back at it. You can see I've kind of skipped ahead here, and I already wired up the XT30 plug. I did that just because the light on my camera died and I didn't want to waste a bunch of time filming something that I probably would have sped up anyway. One thing I do want to talk about really quickly is you can see the way that I have put this wire on here. I did not intend to do a crappy looking splice like this, but the wires that were mounted here on the wires soldered here to the ESC, I was having a lot of trouble getting them to loosen up. I'm not sure if that's like a stronger solder or what going on there, but I decided to not force them and just to make that splice. Alright, I've skipped way ahead here, mainly because my light died again. Really sorry about that. You didn't really miss much though. I already talked about this splicing here on the XT30. I've tried a few props. I really like the 2035 gem fans. These are Rakon 2222s. These are very much like the stock props. They're tri-blades. They look almost identical, except they're clear plastic instead of the opaque. Pretty much it. One thing that I did off camera was I added a bunch of hot glue on the insides where my tubing passes through to make sure it doesn't move any. It looked like my receiver wires were starting to get a little bit damaged, but we should be good. So I went over a bunch of sweet mods you can do to this drone. I definitely suggest some of the basic mods. I feel like some of those should have been the way it came, but that's not always the case, especially with Horizon Hobby. But I really do love this little guy. I have seen some people are having trouble blowing out the ESC. I haven't done that on this. I put it through its paces quite a bit so far. And now we're about to check out these sweet Tattu batteries. Gonna go take it outside. Finally got some clear weather. Let's rip.
Hit the clock, hit the blinds, hit the pine. Nothing but the hit, same shit, different time. Working out the kinks from the mind to the spine. Shower water calling, floor out on the other line. Phone jumping off the dresser in a silent suicide. Saved by the pile of designers on the side. She answer, her cousin with the body of a dancer. Say they got a chance to be in a video with Lil Young so-and-so. She swear that he bout to blow. He saying that we damn so cause we gotta go. Grab hair, clothes, makeup, Garcia, Vegas. And flock them other birds, they gon' pay us like we Vegas. From rental to the highway, the rental mansion driveway. Greeted by an oily jewel rapper looking shiny. I like you used to bully Ice Cube on Fridays. Gripping on her waist and grinning in her face. And she just want a paper cause she feeling out of place. And couple propositions got a feeling for a mason. Her cousin brought a burner, she ain't trying to catch a case. So they split, tires burning end of the street. With a grand sum of none for you and none for me. Sometimes you gotta duck instead of flying in a V. Fuck flying in a V. Hit the blinds, hit the fate. About to hit the sky, get the wine, get the cake. Working out the kinks, but it's love over hate. Usually shower calling, but today she got a date with a clawfoot tub and a back rubbed, and the phone starts singing and she about to hit suds, hits cancel. But calls back FaceTime to ignore the moment is a hate crime. She mainlines, it was a cousin talking about some video. She jokes, don't be out there acting like some city hoe. And more of her mama's post through the smoke, cut through the weeds and the overgrowth. A rose said, cuz you my blood, right? You know that I say it's love, right? You still wanna own a club, right? How about we talk that business under sunlight, right?
Close the blinds, hit the snooze. Nothing but the hits, same shit, different tune. Glued to the gloom with a mind full of blues. Shower water running while she cries in her room. phone, jumping off the dresser in a silent suicide. Saved by the piles of reminders on the side. She doesn't pick it up. She's numb to the cuts and the wounds on her heart from a life in a rut. Text coming from a cousin, but that doesn't interrupt. Dark thoughts on her mind intertwined with the crushed blue pills by the dozens. The only time she doesn't feel disgusting is when she's home alone and she buzzing, clutching to a moment, atoning for something. She lays by the phone in the zone, feeling nothing. She reaches back to change the wax as Cannonball plays the sax. She fades to black.